Two of them are going to give it together, so we've given them 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But I'm going to start with Ignacio López Goñi. He has a PhD from the University of Navarra. He's a professor there as well. He's a microbiologist. He's a scientific communicator. He's also a writer. And he is a key figure in the field of virus and microbiology. So he became very important during the COVID crisis. And also, he's a really good friend. So we're delighted to have him here with us this evening. And please, a warm round of applause, please, for Ignacio López Goñi.
Bueno, antes de empezar.
Okay, so before we start, you all look a little bit tense to me. So I'm just going to take a selfie with all of you. I know we've been talking about really serious things, but I want you now to relax. So can you just start the clock and hey, let's just take a selfie. I don't know, could you please smile? I don't know, look like you're enjoying yourselves. Excellent, brilliant. Okay, right, let's start now then. Ooh, Jesus' first miracle. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's go back again. Right, let's start now. St. John, in chapter 2 of his Gospel, talks about a fantastic feast, a wedding feast. Jesus and his disciples were invited to a wedding in a little town in Cana, in Galilee. And they were accompanied by some women, including Mary, the mother of Jesus. Now, the Jewish weddings at that time, they lasted for maybe, 3-4 days. And there was a fundamental ingredient in those weddings, and that was wine. Without wine, there was no wedding. Now, Maria, she's a very clever woman, and she realized that the wine was running out. And she said to her son, Jesus, the wine's running out. And Jesus was a very obedient lad. He was very good and he loved his mum. What did he do? He turned water into wine. And not any type of wine. The Gospel says that it was a really good wine. And that was his first miracle, turning water into wine. That's brilliant, right? You must agree with me. Now, Jesus was a really clever guy. He was really smart. Now, I don't know, you should read the Gospels every now and then because you learn quite a lot. But I'm not talking about the Gospels. We're here to talk about wine. And because I don't want the organisers to tell me off, I'm just going to give you 4 messages, first of all. Drinking alcoholic beverages harms your health. The sale of alcoholic beverages to people under the age of 18 is strictly prohibited. If you drink, don't drive. And if you're pregnant, don't drink. Now, do you know what water does to wood? It swells it up and it makes it rot. Do you know what water does to iron? It rusts it. Yeah, you can drink water if you want to, but please bear that in mind. It's not good for wood or iron. Right, and now I'm a microbiologist, and sometimes sometimes I have dinner with friends. They ask me, they say, right, you choose the wine. You know all about wine, so you choose the wine. I'm going to tell you how to choose the wine in a dinner. So you get the wine list. With the right hand eye, I'm going to look at the prices, and with my left eye, I'm going to look at the name of the wine. Now, with my right eye, you need to look at the price of the wine. Don't ever choose the most expensive wine. It's never the best. But don't, be really mean and just always get, the cheapest wine. You just need to go in the middle, just to the middle of the wine list, and right in the middle, that's where virtue lies. Just always get the medium price wine. And on the left-hand side, just get one with a really cool name, something different, something a bit exotic. And if it's from, a country like Chile or South Africa or Australia, then that's really good because it's really exotic. So choose that wine. Now, right, once you've chosen the wine, you say to the waiter, please pour the wine, and you have to taste the wine. Now, the waiter will give you a little bit if you're just tasting it. No, don't, please, seriously, don't be a little bit, don't ask him for more at this point. So you pick it up with your right hand, just at the base, because then you're going to look really elegant. You need to make sure that you oxygenate the wine. You move it around a bit. So you move it around, you swirl it around a bit so that it can liberate and release all those lovely aromas. Now you need to smell it. So you stick your nose into the wine glass and you breathe it in. That's a really important moment. You need to shut your eyes. It's really important. You need to nod your head a little bit like you know what you're doing, because then you're going to look really clever. So then you can taste the wine. Now here it's really important that you keep the wine in your mouth for a while. And it needs to just immerse your taste buds in the wine so that you can really taste the wine. And then you can say, yeah, that's okay. You can pour the wine to the rest of the diners. And if you do that, they're going to think you're fantastic. You're going to, look really cool. Now, I don't know if you've ever asked yourselves how wine is actually made. Well, for centuries, for millennia, we didn't really know. We just thought it was a mysterious, divine beverage that made us all happy. But it wasn't until Pasteur, who was actually studying the different diseases and looking at wine under a microscope, that actually realised it was microorganisms, the yeasts that was actually making the wine. Saccharomyces. Saccharomyces is a microorganism that can actually carry out alcoholic fermentation. It can degrade the sugars and produce wine. And yeast is really important. But yeast doesn't just make wine. It's responsible for beer and bread. Can you imagine a world without beer, wine, bread? Without yeast, the world would be a lot more boring, right? We wouldn't have, this custom that you have of going out on a Friday night and having a little drink, a little bar snack. But why does yeast make wine? Yeast doesn't want to actually make wine. It just produces ethanol, and it does that in order to compete against other bacteria which are metabolically much faster than it. It's basically an evolutionary survival strategy. But this is why yeast end up making wine. It's a survival strategy. They're doing it to survive. A couple of years ago, a really good friend of mine, he's almost like a brother to me. And he told me about a project he was working on. He characterizes and isolates autochthonous wine yeasts in order to make wines that are different, with a different type of personality. And so he said to me, right, imagine you've got 3 glasses of wine. The 3 glasses of wine are made with the same yeast. These 3 glasses of wine are the work of the same yeast. Right? They've been made in the same vineyard, but they have been fermented with different yeasts. So we're going to try them. Now this wine, it tastes of fruit. I don't know if it's a banana or a peach, but it's fruity. It's a fruity wine. Now the next wine from the same vineyard, but fermented with different yeasts. Now this is much more powerful. It's got a lot of body. And the third, I love giving this talk because I get to drink wine and no one says anything. It's fantastic. So the first glass of wine, it smells of flowers. I don't know if there's a hint of vanilla, but it's completely different. But they're made from the same grapes, from the same vineyard, but with different yeasts. Now, what my friend was talking about was the concept of terroir. And we always think that has to do with the climate and the practices there, but it has to do with the microbiota of the grapes. And because grapes have a microbiota of different organisms that live inside them, and they're responsible for the personality of each wine, each separate wine. Now, I know I had to give you some graphs, right? Because we're supposed to be talking about science here, so I thought I'd better put some graphs in. But what we can see here is the fermentation, this process of fermentation, which lasts for a few years, and we can see how the different microorganisms and their levels fluctuate throughout this process. And you can see that over the course of fermentation, there's a change in the profile of the microorganisms that are inside the wine. Now, in this other graph, we have different wines. And we can see that in each column represents a different type of wine, and there's a colour code which represent the different yeasts that are intervene in this. And this is what gives us the microbial terroir. And each type of wine has its own profile. It has its own terroir. It has its own collection of microorganisms. So what we're actually seeing at the end of the day is that in a grape, it's not just Saccharomyces, which is the yeast, but in the grape there are dozens of different yeasts, all sorts of different ones with very long, very difficult to pronounce names, and they are responsible for fermentation of the wine. And fermentation of wine is not just that process in which we're moving from sugar to ethanol. It's all these different microorganisms produce all sorts of different compounds, polyethanol, organic acids, volatile acids, all of these different compounds which are responsible for the aroma and the flavour and the texture of wine, which is of course different in each glass of wine, each bottle of wine. We can say that a wine is almost like a living being, in which inside the glass of wine we have a whole explosion of different aromas and colours and flavours. They're all different, and this is a result of the microbiota of the grape, this combination of the different yeasts. And this is what bestows this such a unique personality on each glass of wine. What my friend is trying to do is to select and purify these autochthonous yeasts and isolate them in order to get a very specific cocktail of different autochthonous yeasts and compounds in order to have a different wine and to make a different kind of wine that is 100% native and environmentally friendly. I hope that the next time that you are faced with a wine, you are able to understand all the science that is inside that wine glass, which is the wine which was the first miracle performed by Jesus. Good health to everyone.